So it's January 30, 2020. John the Bond coming to you from Chiang Mai, Thailand. And I've got with me a very special guest, Thirst for Truth, who I found out about this guy through IPS. So today we're going to be talking about Thirst for Truth's path to where he is now. We'll talk about IPS and the whole Brian Staveley thing. We're going to talk about Flat Earth. We're going to talk about Mad Mike Hughes, trolling, doxing, a whole bunch of things. Should be a good chat. Coming to us from somewhere in the US is Thirst for Truth. Thank you for joining us on Sometimes Record.
Thanks for having me, JLB, from Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, fantastic. Well, I've been looking forward to this chat all week. I did announce it. We've got a few people in the room with us. We might as well say hello to them as well. We've got with us from Northern California, Chad628. Good to have you back on the calls.
Good to be here. Thanks, JLB.
And also coming to us from either Chicago or California, one of the two, Fung. Good to have you back.
I'm in Los Angeles, and yeah, it's great to be in Los Angeles and great to be here. Looking forward to this. Thank you.
All right, two Californians, and then there might be other couple of people in the room. Maybe they'll join us later. But for the most part, for the first hour, Thirst for Truth, I'm hoping you can tell us about yourself. You're currently posting on the IPS Discord. You were interviewed by Brian Staveley maybe a year or so ago. So you've got a lot to tell us. Tell us about yourself, what your beliefs are, how you came to be involved with the IPS auto hoax revolution. The floor is yours. Give us an introduction.
Well, my name is Jason. I'm will be 42 years old next month, and it seems like I've always had a different outlook on stuff, and I've mentioned this before. And I can't say it enough. It has a lot to do with your upbringing. You know, how your parents, were they watching the news every night? Were they, what were they into? And my old man, he never was into any of that at all. And I think, there was no Santa Claus. And I think that is super important because think about it. The first lie a kid hears is from their parents, about the Santa Claus character. I don't know how big it is over there, but, it's a big deal over here. And these kids are running around believing in a fictional character right out of the gate. So there was no Santa Claus with me, and and it's just, I think that has a lot to do with your upbringing. My old man never watched the news. He wasn't like, he was, just against authority, I guess you could say, and he was always just had a different outlook on things too. So in the end, and now, the indoctrination you go through when you're a kid, just in your own household, if parents are bitching at the news, this and that, it's going to rub off on the, kids and go into their adult life.
I heard you mention in your chat with Brian Staveley that you worked with your father. Is that right? You worked with him like in the same business or something like this?
I still do. Yeah, this August will be 24 years. So it's like we're hand in hand, and it's pretty cool that you get to share all this shit with, because he's right there with me. We went through everything together. The whole reason I even started making videos on YouTube was just to show him, because it was, funny clowning on, the mainstream media and all the lies they tell us with every breath.
And maybe to give the listeners more context about yourself, your most recent video, you took a clip from Fakeologist's conversation with Mark Sargent from 2015, because Fakeologist was the first person to interview Mark Sargent, curiously enough.
Yeah, I didn't know that was the first interview. Was through Fakeologist. That's interesting all on its own too. But subscriber of mine gave me the link and like, look at this. And yeah, it's very, the guy's 3 weeks into, making videos. he gets an interview with fakeologists, and I don't know much about fakeologists except through his, some 9/11 work with Stavely, and I don't know all his background either. I used to be in his Discord, and I left just because I wasn't interested, I guess. So, but that interview, yeah, very interesting. 3 weeks into his, content creating, slips out a little, our foreseeing the future there with the documentary. And what else did he say in that? References loose change. That's very telling. At that stage of the game, that would have been 2015. I mean, yeah, okay, but he's got all these flat Earth clues and got that all figured out, but he's still referring to loose change was concerning all on its own.
Well, what we'll do is, how about later in the call we come back and talk about Mark Sargent? But just to give listeners some idea, these are the kinds of videos that you make. You're interested in the topic of flat Earth and some of these leading flat Earth characters. That's one of your main interests. Is that a fair call?
Yeah, in the last few months, I've went that route. I don't know how many videos I have, probably close to 200. And previously I just did videos on the, fake events that go on, just little skits, to try to stay in the guidelines, I guess you could say. But then in the last few months, I, took a different direction.
Cool. Well, let's go right back to the start. So let me tell you what happened with me. It was 2013, and for some reason, on YouTube, I saw this clip about one of these events, whether it was the bombing or the school shooting, and basically someone was presenting this idea that we'd been lied to. And then I see smiling Robbie Parker, I see these fake smoke bombs, and I'm like, basically I went on a path that, here we are, 2020, 7 years later, 6.5, 7 years later, and my life has taken a very different turn, all because of learning about what I now call the baby hoaxes. Tell us about your path. What happened? Where did you realize that the news was lying or that something weird was going on? Take us right back to the start, and let's see how you came to be doing all of this.
Well, when 9/11 happened, I mean, it was just watching, you got home from work that day and you're watching these towers fall down, and everyone's freaking out. And my old man and I were like, I don't know but in our head, you couldn't wrap what was at stake there, how fake it was. But just nothing seemed right there. I really didn't feel bad for all the fake deaths that they, said. However many. First, the original story was that 50,000 people in the building. So like 47,000 got out. Well, that ain't so bad, But 9/11 was my biggest interest. Once got into YouTube back in like 2013, 2014. There was so much stuff out there. So I've watched so many 9/11 videos, documentaries, Fetzner, Judy Wood, September Clues. Even listened to an interview with you back in the day with RV about 9/11. That was good. So much different. That was my biggest thing. And
that chat that I had with RV, that was totally impromptu. I was already talking with I was doing a live show with somebody else, and then somehow, we're talking about Russian Vids for listeners, by the way, somehow Russian Vids has found out that I was talking about him, and this was 2016 from memory. And then he sent me a message like, oh, let me onto your show. And I'm like, sure, why not? This would be great. Because Russian Vids has a pretty big audience. And we ended up speaking a lot about Christianity and the Bible, but I haven't listened back to that one for a long time. So thank you for reminding me. I have to go back and re-listen to that one.
That was the first, videos that I heard actually talking about the whole thing being a complete hoax. Everyone else, no one touched that. And I didn't get that from September Clues either. I wasn't on their forums or anything. And they went over the no planes and all that, but it wasn't, they left it at that pretty much from what I've seen. So hearing it from you and RV for the first time was interesting. But you guys were just chatting, you know, you guys were just talking, and I was like, damn, could that be? And just put it on the back burner because I didn't see, you know, you guys didn't have like a screen share showing the evidence that's out there.
So you're saying that the first time that you were exposed to the no planes idea was my chat with Russian Vids in 2016?
No, no deaths.
No deaths. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't realize that. Well, that's really cool. So these days you're on board with the no deaths?
Yeah, yep. Because further down the road, when I ran into Staley's channel, he had 500 subs, and I ran across him and ran across he had like 25 videos of his 9/11 work from back when he was on doing the radio shows. So they were all audio, and from 2010, 2010, 11, 12, and I listened to all of them, and that's where everything came full circle with me on the 9/11 hoax. I was already, you know, comfortable, no planes, no jumpers, but I wasn't buying into the direct energy weapon ordeal. And then Fetzner, he was what mini nukes and hologram planes. Wasn't feeling that either, you know. So it was Stavely who. That's how I found his channel, and that's why I was, you know, so interested in his work.
Yeah, so you were a big fan of Stavely's for quite a while there. You went on his show on episode number 23, I think, of his, what does he call it, My Awakening or something?
Yep.
And so you went on his show, and so you explained sort of a lot of your path to get there at the time. And then what happened? Tell us what happened that made you become more dubious about Stavely.
Well, I was never on board with his Mandela work, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I didn't remember all these details of, you know, in these movies and different kinds of missing letters and changed colors. I just didn't know. So I was just like, okay, this guy knows. And I'm like, you know, observing the Mandela affected, and it was just a different crowd. They're far from auto hoaxing. You know what I mean? They were like, a majority were like, awakened to the lies through the Mandela effect. What the hell? I mean, I don't know. So you thought 19 hijackers with box cutters, you know, did 9/11 until the Mandela effect? Get out of here. But anyhow, I just wasn't a fan. But like I said, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. And then the Awakening interview, I knew I was going to have to tell him that. And it sucked. Because he really, you know, he never knew, and I was there listening to, you know, since he had 500, I watched his channel grow from 500 subs to 7,000, and told him what I thought about it, and at that time I really didn't know the real details of what it really, you know, and after when I was on a show, after the next day, I get a message from one of the listeners who listened to it and who is now a good pal of mine, Bobby Dazzler. He don't make any content or nothing, but him and I, you know, talk. And he sent me a message going, so you really don't believe in the Mandela effect? And I was like, it's not that I don't believe in it. I just don't know it. So from there, him and I started to look into this thing. I mean, look into it deep. I mean, I thought like, okay, if it's, you know, I'm like, is it like, I was wondering what was going on with my pal, Stavely. He was taking it to it's something like, I was wondering what is causing it, if it was besides faulty memory. So we looked into it, and I mean, there's so many cases. If you just sit down and look at the different, why this mass misremembering is going on. Elizabeth Loftus, I believe her name is. She did a lot of good work on the misinformation effect, is what it's called. I mean, it is just a memory thing. And you got these Mandela crowd, they go into all these different chats and they're hearing this stuff over and over and over again. Whether they remember it or not, they're going to, think they remember it, kind of thing. And what was his 9/11 work, I'm sure you're aware of, was so good. It's like, how could he be so off on this? And if it's like, it was really troubling, because and the things I did remember, that didn't match up to what we're pushing. But anyhow, what the whole downslide was, he got asked to go on IPS's show and went on there, had a good show, and it wasn't no more than a couple weeks later, some other very telling things came out, and with his co-host now, Karen B, and had an interview with Authentic Intent. And did you know anything about that interview at all?
No. This is the first I've heard of Inauthentic Intent.
So that was in September. They had an interview where Authentic Intent, had to try to clear the air about a sexual charge he had, and watched the live stream, and everybody in the live stream, and they were all behind this. The whole interview was so freaking awkward. You would not believe. I mean, it was bad. And watched it. Brian was in the chat, and this guilty by association, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? And that was a big thing. And that's when I started to, like, okay, am I going to keep going back to his show and, he's behind this shit, okay with it, I should say, and continue on with Karen B and all that? I had to go. So, I mean,
so just let me get this straight. Sorry to interrupt you there. So you're saying that there's some YouTuber or some person who calls themselves Inauthentic Intent, and they've been accused of
that's what
some
they
kind
actually
of...
should be called.
Okay, so Authentic Intent, one of the two. And so they've been accused of some kind of crime or something. And so you're saying he went onto Brian's show with Karen to plead his innocence or something?
Karen interviewed Authentic Intent on Authentic Intent's show. Interviewed him. And he told what happened, and it was disturbing. I mean, there's a documentary out on it, very interesting, called Behind the Perv. I think everybody should listen to that. And it's just, it goes on a lot, it seems, with a lot of people on YouTube, especially in the flat earth community.
Yeah, and this is something that came out in my chat with IPS, my first chat with him from December last year. So only 6 weeks ago, I think. And see, I hadn't been paying attention to Flat Earth. And I didn't realize that Robbie Davidson, the guy who organizes the Flat Earth International Conference, had done a documentary with two other guys, and one of those guys has since been charged with some apparently some sexual crimes, right? Now, how serious those charges are or how much evidence, I have no idea. I have no idea. But what I'm trying to say is I didn't even realize that one of Robbie Davidson's colleagues, I suppose, had these charges hanging over his head. And supposedly he's been since in prison for them, by the way. So I think, like, if you go to prison, that must mean there's some kind of admission of guilt or guilty verdict or something, you know what I mean? But the point is, I knew about all of the stuff that was hanging over people's heads a couple of years ago. The number of these flat earthers who have been involved in Bitcoin scams or have been charged with crimes, and it's all on the record. And it's like, how come so many of these people at the top of Flat Earth have these dodgy histories? Like, it can't just be a coincidence, can it? If it's just one or two people, okay. But if it's 4, 5, 6 people from one conference, it's like, what? How come they've all got these dodgy histories? You know what I mean? It can't just be coincidence, can it?
No, I mean, come on. I mean, you can try to say a coincidence, and everyone avoids it, and then they don't address it, and they can try to do some damage control. And that looks like the guy in charge of that looks like, I think it's safe to say we can call him Ben, because that's what Rick Hummer called him for a whole 4 hours when he was on his show the other couple weeks ago. RV seems like he's the guy that plays damage control for these guys. You know, has them come on and try to walk back whatever greasy stuff is going on.
But here's what gets me, right? So in the conspiracy subculture, there's this common perception that politicians and celebrities, they take part in like these pedophile sex rings or something. And the idea is, once they take part in it, it can be used against them for blackmail or whatever, so now they're controllable. This is like a very popular theory in conspiracy subculture. So you've got these people leading this so-called flat earth movement, and so many of them have these charges laid against them, or they're convicted of this particular thing, or it's on the record that they were involved in this particular Bitcoin scam. And it's like, well, hold on. If you believe that the people who run the show use people's past against them as blackmail, then what the hell do you think's going on with these flat earth people? Like, can't you see that there's a parallel there? And apparently a lot of them can't see the parallel. So doesn't it concern you that it's not just one or two people? It seems as though half of them, maybe more, and they're just the ones that we know about, right? Because who's doing the digging on all of this? IPS? Yeah, the other Tim Osman? Maybe half a dozen people in the world are doing the digging on this. Do you think any of the people attending the Flat Earth Conference have done any of this background research? No. They don't know who the hell they're listening to. So who knows how many more skeletons are in the closet of these other people involved at the top of this thing? And again, the question is it just a coincidence? And I say, I don't think so. Now, what exactly is going on? I don't know. But I don't think it's all above board, if there's the truth. What say you?
Right. It's definitely, like I told Bobby the other day, I wouldn't even tell somebody to go look into Flat Earth right now, because all you're going to find is these creepy little huddles of these researchers. And I didn't even like these guys back when I was looking into the topic, which would have been like late 2016, 2017, you know, because it was in your face. And Mark Sargent was the first guy, coincidentally, that everyone usually runs into. He gets suggested to you. And they say now you look up Flat Earth and you'll have all these, mainstream media and this and that. Well, yeah, that's true. But guess whose also face you see, like the third video down? Mark Sargent. And it's just the whole, it's very strange, JLB. It's very strange, what do you want to call it? Community, I guess.
Well, you know what I'm going to do? How's this for a test? I've just opened a new incognito window on my browser, and I've typed in Flat Earth. So what is the top? And your search results are dependent on your location. So I'm not saying that this is going to be the top results for everyone. But right now, in my incognito browser, if I type Flat Earth into a YouTube search, here are the top results. Number 1, controversial YouTube star Logan Paul documents Flat Earth conference. Now, that's a conference with all of these people that we're talking about, right? He went to the Robbie Davidson Flat Earth International Conference, yeah? Second result is National Geographic. Third result is I think the rock is Mad Mike. Man launches himself in self-made rocket to prove flat Earth theory. I think that's Mad Mike. The fourth result is Jim Norton. I don't know, is he meant to be a comedian or something? And the fifth result, with his face and his hat, is Mark Sargent. Inside a flat Earth convention where nearly everyone believes Earth isn't round. So, yeah, here we are 5 years after this all became a big thing, and Mark Sargent is still in the top 5 results. And the conference that he's at is the top result. So these people still have a lot of influence in all of this.
And another thing very telling with them guys, the majority of them, they don't talk fake events. You know, they're constantly talking about surrounded by an ice wall, living in a snow globe. You know, they're not talking about the fake shootings. They're not talking, I mean, I'm sure, you know, they're worried about getting their channel taken down or whatever, but you can bring it up in you can still address it without, you know, going, you know what I mean?
Well, in one of my first chats with Mark Sargent, because I've chatted with him, I think 3 times now, once at Fakeologist and then twice on my channel. On at least one of those occasions, I asked him, because, you know, he claims that they fired rockets into the dome, yeah? What was it called? Operation whatever.
Fishbowl?
It might have been Fishbowl, yeah. So I'm like, because even by 2015, I was already starting to realize that these missiles are a hoax. Even by 2015, I was starting to catch on to that. So I'm like, hold on. This guy who's claiming that we've been lied to about heliocentrism and all the rest of it, which I agree with him about, he's also still promoting the idea that the military fires missiles into the sky. And it's like, I said to him, is it possible that that's not real? And no, he was steadfast on this idea that, yeah, that the military fires, you know, missiles into the dome. Right?
Well, it wasn't too long ago, David Weiss mentioned that video, and that's another video that gets thrown in your suggestion right away I remember watching that video a while ago. Are you talking about the missile that goes all the way up and then all of a sudden, dunk, hits like, it stops? Are you talking about that one?
Well, I'm going back right to the original Flat Earth
Operation
Clues.
Fish. Okay.
And so in the original series, he has these claims about Admiral Byrd.
Operation. Yeah.
And then this operation where supposedly the US military had fired missiles and the missiles had hit the dome. And I'm going off memory here, so we're going back a little while. But the point is he was promoting this idea that there are these missiles being fired into the dome. And I'm like, yeah, but maybe those missiles don't even exist. So it's kind of, he's promoting that the military, like the official story of the military, in order to promote his flat Earth thing. And I'm like, since we're meant to be questioning things, why aren't we questioning the technology the military supposedly has? And that's not the only example too. Like I don't know if he still does these shows with that sidekick of his, but they used to do these shows talking about the Navy and like the military, the missile technology the Navy uses. And I'm like, hold on. I'm not convinced that the Navy does fire any of these missiles or that have any of these long-distance radars or like this technology that the military is saying they have. Maybe they do, but I don't know. But these guys are totally promoting the official story of the military technology. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Right. Very suspicious. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, people can say what they want, and it's interesting they can't see through some of these guys. I was saying, why do they all have to push that dome anyhow? Why can't they say, we don't know? Because you don't know. Well, they got to push that dome and ice wall. It's very weird. And if you don't agree with it, it's like well, look what happened to IPS. You know, you get exiled from their flat Earth domed conference.
Well, when I was chatting with IPS, that's the first I've heard of this idea that when he went to the conference, Bob Nodel's wife already had a police officer there ready to say, this is the guy to look out for. Like, that's what IPS told me in my chat with him. I'm like, what? Let me get this straight. You are a flat earther, or at least you say that you are, and you went to a flat earth conference, and one of the organizers had already teed up a police officer to tell him to keep his eye on you. And he's like, yep. I'm like, that is full on, isn't it? Could you imagine such a thing? You're a flat earther, you go to a flat earth conference, and the leader of the conference has told a police officer about you, and then when they see, like, this is the guy we're telling you about, keep an eye on this guy. Like, what kind of shenanigans is this?
They definitely have it out for him. I mean, and I've been listening to him since September. I barely, miss. I like his work. I don't see anything, why they just really do not like IPS or anybody associated with them for that matter. Because he's not afraid to name and shame some of these guys. And so you have to. I mean, if it's, legit, yeah, people have to know that, hey, come on, these guys are not who they say they are. There's something else to it.
I've got my theories as to what's going on, and in the second hour, maybe we can talk about this, because it's not just flat Earth. Even just the idea of a convention and getting hundreds of people together. Are the people at the front of the convention, the people who are making the presentations, the people who are doing the workshops? I've got this idea now that flat Earth is just one example of something that is done all across the board in a whole bunch of different fields, where the people at the top of the social hierarchy take advantage of it. And I want to come back to that in the second hour. So let's get back to this interview with Brian Staveley. So you do the interview, you have this chat with another listener about Mandela effects. Do you really believe it? When did you make it clear to Brian Staveley or to his fans that you thought that they were on the wrong track? What was the turnaround time from your interview to when things got heated?
Well, it really didn't get heated until that incident with his co-host and Authentic Intent. But I could tell, once they knew that I wasn't affected, I could tell a different, a vibe, I guess. But I mean, I was still there. He still uploaded 9/11 stuff once in a while, and I liked his view on other, fake events. And he wasn't a dome believer, ice wall either. So it was like he had good, stuff outside of that Mandela effect.
Well, that's the thing. His 9/11 work was fantastic. And his 9/11 work wasn't just good. It was years ago. So there are people who are still playing catch up now to what Staley was talking about. Maybe, maybe 2013, 2014? We're going back a long time. So it's not just that his work was good. It was years ahead of most people. He was on the same level as Marcus Allen and Chris Kendall from Hoaxbusters Call. You can listen to calls with those three guys on the same call chatting about this kind of stuff. So he was the fakeologist as well. All of those guys 6-7 years ago were talking about no plans on 9/11, media fakery, all these things. So the idea that now we've got Brian Staveley, now his big thing is Mandela effect, and he openly says he's trying to convince all flat earthers to talk about Mandela effect. He openly brags about how he's getting all the flat earthers to make this their big thing. It does make you wonder what could possess somebody like that to sort of go down that path. It's
strange, and it's like, then I was like, okay, maybe he believes himself. Maybe he actually believes himself. And then it was just like, no, there are too many things in there, because the further he went down that Mandela path, the more, I don't know, sci-fi and just fantasy it became once they started to have to explain certain effects that, are easily disproven. And he went down, just got too much. We're shifting dimensions, different realities. Come on, man. You look yourself in the mirror and you're going to say that. I mean, maybe so, but I'm not feeling that. I mean, call me simple, I guess, but, it's too bad.
So then what happened? So your interview was in June of 2019. You chat with this other
June,
listener.
July, August. So 3 more months is when the Behind the Curve happened. So then I was not going back there, and he knew where I was, and that was that. And then started to still continue looking into the Mandela effect. And the more you look into it, the more it's just, you can just shred it to pieces. So that's where the, back and forth thing, I guess, went.
Do you think that you and IPS and others who are trying to expose some of these problems with Mandela effect and the people who are promoting it, do you think you're going to have much success going forward, or do you think Mandela effect is going to keep getting bigger? This little online movement is going to keep getting bigger?
It is so bizarre. It is the most, and you look at it at first glance and you're like, yeah, whatever. But I think it's one of the most dangerous things to get into. You're losing your mind, and you think you've lost your mind. That's not good. I mean, sorry to offend any Mandela affected people, but man, oh man, it's dangerous. Dangerous thinking. Dangerous. And how many effects can you have before it's no cure? I mean, how can you backtrack and not accept the memories that you thought you had when you didn't have the real ones to start with? I mean, you're in a bad situation. I think that's maybe where Brian got himself into too, is just he got too deep into it. You can't backtrack now. He's getting popular. Most of all his listeners, well over probably 80%, are there for the Mandela effect.
You look at 9/11, and if you talk about 9/11 being a hoax, you're not going to get much of an audience doing that. Hoaxbusters been doing that for years, hasn't got much of an audience. Fakeologists have been doing it for years, hasn't got much of an audience. Mandela effect, on the other hand, apparently can attract an audience, can't it?
Yeah, it's strange. And you look back. I looked into so much of this whatever you want to call it. And you'll have content creators from Shane Dawson and other goofy YouTube, creators doing stuff on the Mandela effect, right? Millions of views, but they never took it into another. They were just like, oh, leave a comment if that was creepy, Jiffy, and just dumb shit like that, right? So you got these YouTube sensation, younger makeup tutorial creators talking on this a couple years back, getting millions of views. I don't think the Mandela effect was supposed to reach these corners of YouTube in the kind of what do you say, conspiracy culture. I think it was just supposed to be left up for people to chat and to exchange childhood mismemories. I don't know.
But it has become a thing now. So my question to you was, do you think it will continue to get bigger? And for listeners who don't know, I'm sure most of them do, some of them might not realize just how big this little Mandela effect community is getting. Stavely is getting hundreds and hundreds of listeners live. The other shows who do this, they all cross-promote each other. I don't think they've done a Mandela effect convention yet, but it's only a matter of time. And they
yes.
Have they already done a convention, have they?
Yeah, conference. Yeah.
There you go. So they've already started doing the conferences. So everything that we've seen happen with Flat Earth, Mandela effect is going to do the same. And a lot of the people who get involved in this, they do get fully psychologically involved, and emotionally involved. And you can see it in the live chat. You can see it in the way that they treat non-believers. It has already developed into a religion. They obviously wouldn't like hearing that. Oh, it's not a religion, it's a movement, it's a community, whatever. Okay, fine. But a lot of what we saw with Flat Earth, Mandela effect has already started going the same way. And what I'm saying, Thirst for Truth, is that nothing you or I or IPS or anybody says or does is going to stop it. Once people buy into this kind of thing, there's nothing you can do to stop that.
Yeah, I agree. It's not gonna, like I said, how is somebody gonna go, okay, maybe I am from this reality and maybe I have been misremembering. There's no way. Once they're hit that point, there's no turning back. Yeah, it's gonna get bigger. Got so big they made a movie on it. When are they gonna make a movie on?
I haven't seen the movie yet. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
Yeah, we watched it. We watched IPS, got it, and we watched it in a Zoom conference. It was great. I mean, it was exactly what I mean, not according to Stavely, but all the other Mandela pushers in the community, they all loved it because it was exactly what they were pushing. Stavely kind of went in there and took the Mandela effect and put a different spin on it. You know, the other ones were thinking it was a lot to do with CERN, you know, and Stavely wasn't having that, and he took it in a different direction. So of course he didn't like the movie, but the other ones did. That's very telling too. You know, I don't know, it's wild. I'm fascinated with it. I mean, I like debunking it every which way I can, and if you put enough time in, and you can, it's, you know.
All right, so a lot of the listeners who are listening to this right now, they don't believe in Mandela effect, but there's going to be people listening, they do believe. And if they were here right now, they'd probably say to you, okay, did C-3PO's leg used to be silver? Would you say to them, yeah, it's been silver the whole time? Some of these real popular Mandela effects, what is your take on
Well,
these?
that one was, I mean, I wouldn't know. I didn't watch the movie enough to even pay attention. We're talking how long ago now? You know, plus this Mandela effect thing, it seems like you got to be in a certain age, because if you're too young, what are you gonna, you know Pikachu's tail changing colors? So it's like, we're talking Star Wars was when? I mean, coming out in I don't know, I was a
The
kid.
70s and 80s, I think.
Yeah, so I was, you know, I couldn't say until, you know, you look into it. You got the actor that says, "Oh yeah, I've always had the one silver leg, and my film photographer didn't even notice," you know, because it's a reflection, shows a reflection. So it's like I mean, what else? But the Mandela effect will say no, because then the actor, he's in on it. Well, what? Really? He's in on it? Or
one of the really popular ones is Dolly. So this is from Moonraker, one of the James Bond films, I think.
Yeah.
What's your take on the
41-year-old movie? Never watched it once. Never knew anything about it until the Mandela effect. And it seems like that one has a lot of people hung up, but it's like, I couldn't say. You know, I'm just going by you look into it, you see the original, it was an article written and talking about it. The producer was like, yeah, in a perfect world, it would have been nice or you would think Dolly would have braces and yada yada. But then he goes, when Jaws, what was the scenario? Smiled at Dolly first, so he was attracted to her first before she even smiled. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, Jaws smiled at her, and then Dolly smiled back. Well, they put the connection of that's why they like fell in love, because she had braces or whatever. I don't know. I mean, that one. But here's a big one that really convinced me, and this is one thing that I can absolutely remember, and that's the JFK ordeal with 6 in the car to 4 in the car. Okay, and I don't know. I mean,
So let's give the listeners some context. So if you ask the average person how many people were in the car on the day that, on 22/11/63, on the day that JFK supposedly was assassinated, regardless of whether it was a conspiracy or not, regardless of whether anyone died or got hurt, because of course I say that nobody died, nobody got hurt, it was a hoax. But regardless of all of that, how many people were in the car? And most people would say 4. But these days, now, and possibly always, the answer is 6, isn't it?
yeah, and I don't know why they would say 4. I mean, anybody that's, whatever footage you want to look at, I mean, I don't know why they would. I remember this from when I was a kid. I mean,
Well, you remember there being 6 people in the car?
yeah, when I was there, I went to this like eighth grade. Went to this school, new school, became friends with this kid, and this kid was like into JFK, right? Don't know why, don't know how, but he 13 years old, 14 years old, convinced me that, JFK assassination wasn't what it said to be. It wasn't Oswald out of the book Depository. There's somebody up in this grassy knoll here. So looking at all these pictures, I mean, I can remember it from then. And then always six, because they got the magic bullet that tagged the governor. I mean, that was in the movie as well. So where is that magic bullet going in Mandela land when there's four? Would that be Jackie, JFK, and the driver, and then the passenger? Is that what they're thinking? I don't know.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that the JFK Mandela effect, where a lot of people say they remember four, but it's six, you're saying you always knew it was six right from the start?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting, because for me, it was Sex in the City, right? I hear all these people going, oh, it used to be Sex in the City, now it's Sex and the City. I'm like, it was always and, always. I remember as a child, because I was a child when that show was big, it was Sex and the City. And people were mispronouncing it even back then. Because to them it was just, it's a show about women having sex in New York. And it's like, no, it's a show about women and the city of New York. It's very much a New York sort of inspired storyline, about Manhattan and all the people that Carrie's mixing with and her life as a socialite, blah, blah, blah. It's a show about her and her friends and the city of New York. That's why it's called that, right? And that was always the case. So when I heard people saying, oh no, it used to be in, I'm like, no, you are wrong. You are wrong. And I think that's probably why I didn't get sucked into Mandela effect the way that some people do, because the examples that were given to me, I'm like, no, you're wrong. So it sounds like the same thing has happened with you with the six people in the car. It's like you've heard other people saying that they remember it the wrong way. You're like, no, it was never that way. And so it was probably easier for you to not get sucked in.
Especially not knowing all the 100 other examples. Like, I couldn't tell you, man. I could not tell you. I did not watch. I didn't even know about those little damn bears until this. I wasn't, didn't have that when I was a kid, And if, I don't know how they can go back in their, oh, don't you trust your memory? And they get very serious about it. I mean, very. You don't trust your memory, this and that. Well, not enough to fight for, absolute truth. Absolutely not. It's very bizarre.
If you had to give one example of a Mandela effect that you're more open to, do you have any examples? Because for me, where South America is, I didn't realize it was that far east. Straight up. I knew that South America wasn't underneath North America. I knew that. But now when I look at a map, I'm like, wow, South America is a lot further east than I remembered. Now, I'm not saying that's a Mandela effect. To me, that's just, I wasn't very good at geography and I didn't study. My geography, even to this day, is still not that good, despite the fact that I'm traveling around, a different part of the world. My geography is still not that good. And as a child, it was terrible. So yeah, I'm not saying that the position of South America has changed. All I'm saying is, of all the Mandela effects that I've seen, this is the one where I'm like, yeah, I can see why people believe that this has changed, because it is a lot further east than I remember. So I can see why someone who is already predisposed to believing in these kinds of things could get sucked in by the South America one. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm open to it. I understand.
I couldn't tell you about that one either. I mean, looking at a world map like that, I mean, couldn't tell you. You got that one picture of NASA, 6 Earths. Well, they're kind of all different Earths too. I mean, they should use that as a Mandela effect. They got the continents in different places. You know what I'm saying? You know what picture I'm talking about?
No, I don't think I do.
It's like pictures from NASA, and they had 6 pictures of Earth, and they were different. They were different shaped. Some of them were different.
Okay, yeah, no, that one I'm not too familiar with. I'm still slowly learning more about this Mandela effect thing, because I tried to make December Mandela month, and I tried to sort of focus on it and learn more about it, and hopefully interview some people involved in it. That's how I interviewed IPS, because I knew that he was covering Mandela effect a lot. Yeah, but I'm still. If you put a Stavely listener here right now, they could probably name 20 or 30 Mandela effects right on top of their head. Because it's something they talk about a lot, they listen about, they think about. So they've got all these Mandela effect examples in their head. Whereas for me, I'm still learning some of these so-called Mandela effect examples.
Their number one, their biggest one, allegedly, is the Ed McMahon commercials. That's like a top 3 in Mandela land. They think that he was always worked for Publishers Clearinghouse, but in reality, he was a spokesman for American Family Publishers. Well, now you're talking, you got to go back to your memory at minimum 20 plus years, because, American Family Publishers went bankrupt in 1998. So we're talking anytime before then. So you're going way back of those envelopes that come in the mail, yada, yada. And no, you're a kid. I mean, why are you, putting the whole conspiracy theory right on this one effect? Well, come to find out, I mean, you can find these commercials of Ed as a spokesman for American Family Publishers. You can find these commercials. They will say that just got downloaded into this reality to mess with them, even though, I mean, you can go back 10 years on an upload on YouTube. So what does that mean? YouTube's in on it too. And it's just like so bizarre. And then you dig further and you can find this court case. What year was it? Not sure what year it was, but court case, all documented, between Publishers Clearinghouse, American Family, Reader's Digest, and I think Time for these scams they were running back then, because they targeted seniors, and then the seniors thought they were going to win $1 million, so they would order all this dumb shit they don't need, and it actually went into a court case because they were sending the envelopes. When you read it, you got to read the small print to say, your chances of winning, yada, yada. But, I mean, they took it to court, and that document itself has the Ed McMahon working for American Family. I mean, the list goes on and on of debunking these effects. And like the JFK, that's another one. That's in their top 5. So it's like, not accepting it at all.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've come towards the end of the first hour. So in the second hour, we can pick up the conversation on Mandela effect, go a bit further. We'll talk about IPS and Brian Staveley's rivalry, if you want to call it that. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. As someone who used to listen to Staveley a lot, now is on the IPS Discord, you've got a perspective that I think is worth exploring. We'll talk about Mark Sargent and your thoughts on his chat with Russian Vids. We'll talk about Mad Mike Hughes, your thoughts on this crazy rocket man. And we'll talk about trolling and doxing and just this online culture, which I personally think can be very toxic. I'd love to get your thoughts on all of that. But we've got to wrap up the first hour. And before we do, I should say that I was talking about the YouTube search results. If you look in Flat Earth, what Fung from Chicago, who is listening to the call as we speak, he went and tried this out himself. He typed in Flat Earth into YouTube, and here are the results he got. He got Jake Bird at the Flat Earth Conference is his top result. Second result, Mark Sargent at the Flat Earth Conference. So to this day, depending on where you're searching for this, Mark Sargent is still potentially the second result in Flat Earth on YouTube. And the context is he's still a big part of this Flat Earth propagation. But we need to wrap up the first hour. So give us your final thoughts on the first hour there, Thirst for Truth.
Well, I enjoyed it. Sorry for being nervous, but I enjoyed it. Thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah, well, we'll see you in a few moments for the second hour of the call. It's been a little while since I've read out the credits for johnthebond.com. So just give me 2 minutes, guys. I want to just read out the names of the people who are making these calls possible. Adam, Adrian C, Alpha X Omega, Al, Anthel, Archer, BCNU, Beefy Squire, Benty Water, Big Dave, BM Seattle, Brandon Berry, Bravo, Callum, Chad628, Chris746, Chris Langton, Cruiser Now, Curryman11, DB User, Dante from New York, DJ Mo 1987, DNA, Dr. My Eyes, Fly Fisher, French Bull Dab, History Buried, Human Being, ID Can Spire, Jacobius Rex, JD, Jimmy Scala, John, Kazooie, Cavola, Clink39, Nightly News, Laura Mars, Local Chump, Mark J, Mass, Matty V, Mezzy, Mum with Sons, Mongo, Morgan, M. Rutkowski, Notosphere, Negan, Tropic, Nicholas 36, Nocrates, Off Story, Pango, Permaculture Hill, Philharmonic, Philip BBG, PJG, Ponoku, Ponsot, Ravi, Rico, Salzburg Gold, Shadow Tiger, Sarah, Steffers, Still Fiona, Stoned Maverick, Sunny, The Portland Thinker, The Prophet 49, Pikey Limited, Top Secrets, Truth Grasshopper, Uninspired Thought, Velocet, What's Up Sport, Who Knows? Most recent member is Fenzig, and the Super Agents, 01, Alistair Kane, 05, Fung, 07, Tatognosis, 11, Apoc Shaker, 21, Waterman Chris, 27, JPC, 33, Hando, 34, True 34, 88, Nate M, and 138, Original Simulant. They're the ones making these calls possible. Big thanks to all of them, and all of those guys will be able to check out the second hour of the call, which is available at johnthebond.com. But if you're not a member, you won't be able to hear the second part of the call, where I'll be chatting with Thirst for Truth about IPS, Stavely, Flat Earth, Trolling, Doxing, Mark Sargent, Mad Mike Hughes, a whole lot. Lots more to talk about in hour 2. So big thanks once again to all the people making this possible, and we'll see you in just a moment for hour 2 of the call.